G'day guys, welcome back to Mud Rats Hunting and Outdoors. In this vid I'm going to show you how to full length bed a Weatherby Vangaurd Series 2. So we're just going to take our old 243 with a factory Hogo model stock. We're going to do a full length bedding job on this thing, and it's already shooting around about 1-inch groups at 100 yards, so we want to obviously make it shoot a little bit better groups. So we're going to go ahead and do a full length bedding job on it. A couple of things that you'll need is a few screwdrivers. I've got my firearms accurizing torque wrench that I use for just about everything, with a few torque style bits for undoing the action and everything else like that. You're going to need a Dremel or a die grinder of some sorts, some sandpaper, some tape, and then obviously your bedding compound, which for this I'm using 30-minute Permatex epoxy, which I've done many a rifle with this and it works quite well. So first thing we'll do, there's no bolt in the rifle, we'll just flip it over and we'll just try and remove the action screws out of the action. The other thing you'll need is obviously a container, something like this, or this ice cream container that I have here. Now I have the magazine, well, and follower and spring which I've already removed in here. I won't bother showing how to remove it. I'll show you how it goes back in and how simple they are to remove later on in the video. But for now I'll just basically show you the quick disassembly on the firearm. So once you pull your bottom metal out, you normally have the magazine spring, which basically just slides in and pops straight out. It's quite easy to turn and figure out how to take that out. And then normally your magazine well will just sit and locate inside of that. So that's not a drama, that's pretty easy to pull out, that's self-explanatory. So now once we've got the barrel action and the stock pulled apart from each other, the first thing we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to remove the trigger, and then later on, once we've removed the trigger and we've started to do the work on the stock, we'll have to make up our plasticine dams to go in here, or our modeling clay dams to dam up our action. But I'll show the removal of the trigger in a moment. The first thing I wanted to show is the stock. Now, as you can see here with the stock here, these really have quite a nice bed to start with, but they do lack a little bit around the recoil lug area, and they only ride on a small section here in the front and a small section here in the rear. So you've got all this area through here where the actual base of the action does not even touch the bed of the rifle, so it's only resting on those two small pieces. So what we're going to do is we're going to mark, as you can see here, which I've may already see, I've basically marked out about a couple of mil here with a paint pen of a height reference point, because you need to leave a height reference point of your factory inlay of the stock in place, both in the front and the rear. Everything else in between is all going to be removed. Now, the reason for you removing it is because if you don't, you only end up with a very thin bed and it can break out quite easily. But you need to retain those two height reference points, otherwise when you turn and go to bolt the action and barrel back into the stock, it'll pull down lower than what it is factory, and the barrel channel already touches the barrel, so we're going to go ahead and free up some of those areas and free float the barrel as well. But I'll get into that in a moment. I'll reset the camera up here again on the bench so you can see how I'm working on top of the bench, and I'll show you the areas that we're going to machine out and sand away and smooth out, ready for the bedding compound and everything to go in. So I'll just do that, put that aside now, guys. I'll set up, I'll show you how to remove the trigger, and then once I remove the trigger, I'll go on to show how what I'm going to do with the rest of the stock. So I'll just pause the camera for a moment and we'll get set up, and I'll do that and I'll show that part of the procedure. Okay guys, so we've got the barrel action here on the table, Now I'm going to show you how to remove the trigger on the Weatherby. The first thing you're going to have to remove is your bolt release spring here on the side. Now to take that out, all it has is a small flat blade screw that you can see just here. But when you back that screw out, be careful to make sure to keep your thumb here, because there's a small spring in here that you don't want to go flying out and taking off. Once you've removed that, you can then put that aside in your container, and it's as simple as just removing a single Allen key bolt here to remove the trigger mechanism. So we'll go ahead and do that now, and I'll show you what I mean. So like I say, you just want to keep a little bit of pressure there where that spring is, and then go ahead and remove that screw. Now that we've removed that screw, we can release that pressure, and the bolt release lever will come apart, and then we can pry up that small spring. And as you can see, that spring is only tiny, so you want to be, and it's under a fair amount of tension, so you want to be careful when you remove that. Then you can turn the action back over again, and you can then go ahead and undo your trigger bolt. That's just one bolt, and then the whole trigger mechanism will come out as easy as that. We can now put that aside, and we basically have our barrel action sitting now down near there now, ready to try and put all our dams into, make all our dams up, ready for bedding. But I'll show you that process later on. I'll just quickly reset the camera up again, and I'll show you what we're going to do with the working of the stock. Okay guys, so here we have the stock. You see the factory inlay. What we're going to do here is we're going to take a pen, and we're going to mark a small section just here where the bottom of the inlay actually rests on the bottom of the action. So if you have a look at the bottom of your action, this part of your action here is the main part that touches this section here of the inlay of your stock. And then on the other end of your action, you'll notice the rear part around the tang area where it rests in here. So with that area, we want to be able to try and pull that barrel action back down to the original battery position in the stock when we go to turn and bed the rifle. So with that, we needed to leave behind a small slither of the original factory inlay. So that part there, that I've marked here with the pen, I'm actually going to leave behind. I'm going to die grind all this out. I'm going to die grind this out about 1.5 mil, and the same in around the tang area, but I'm going to leave the rear part of the tang area. I'll mark that through here. So we're going to leave the rear part of the tang area back to, you know, the original height. So that section there, we won't touch at all. We'll only try and remove forwards of that area, about 1.5 mil deep. Also, we're going to remove about 0.5 mil through the sides. We are also again going to remove the top parts of the notches of where the barrel bands are, the barrel skeletal system is that holds the inline of the barrel, and also at the very end here at the muzzle end, or sorry, at the very end of the fore end, we're actually going to remove a little bit out of here as well, just to allow for the free floating of the barrel. So we'll just take the Dremel. Okay, so with the Dremel, I'll just turn the stock around so that I can access this a lot easier and give you a bit of an idea. I won't show the whole entire of this process, but I'll just show basically the beginning of it. I'll go through and then do it like I have done in previous videos with my bedding videos. Otherwise it's just too long of a procedure. So I'll just dig out what we need to dig out here, and then I'll go ahead and show what I've done. So I'll just show you basically what we're going to do. We're basically just going to die grind off a depth out of there And the reason why we're going to do that is because you want at least 1.5 mil thickness of bedding. Anything less than that, and it's very easily for the bedding to turn to be actually broken out of the way. It'll end up quite thin, and it'll break away quite easily. So you need a fair amount of depth taking out of there. And we're going to do the same thing, like I said, for down through the sides here, down through the inlay around the magazine well. We're going to do the same thing. And the idea of that is the bedding compound will then take up that difference, and you'll end up with an exact copy of the bottom of your action. And that'll stop any sort of movement when the rifle returns to battery after firing each shot. And that'll save a lot of your flies, and that's how you get your accuracy. So I'll go ahead and do all this now, and then I'll show you that once the finished product's done. So what it all sort of looks like when that stage is finished, and then we'll get on to the next part of the process. Right, guys, so we've gone over the whole lot with the Dremel, and as you can see in there, we have that height reference point in the front that I was talking about, and I don't know how well you're going to see it, but we have our height reference point down there in the rear where we've left that original factory piece of inletting behind. And what that'll do is that'll allow us to pull back down onto the original factory inletting, and the rest of the voids through here, through the recoil lug area will all get filled up with that compound and make the entire action a complete copy of the action. We're not too worried about this section through here because it's only a real small section, and being that this here will fill also as well as this and the recoil lug assembly, once fills up, that'll flow over the top of this, and that small little area won't be a problem. There won't be any problem with breaking out because we've got plenty enough either side, you know, deep enough to make a decent enough thick bedding. Same with here in the rear. So what we'll do now that we've done that section, I've also freed up a little bit of the area through the barrel channel. We'll have to do some more of that, but we'll do some more of that in the finishing side of things. The next thing you need to do is to take your modelling clay, and I always like to use modelling clay. This dries hard, which is good because it stops the compound from pushing the modelling clay back up and allowing, you know, the actual bedding compound to flow into areas that you don't want it to go into. So the sort of areas that we want to fill up basically in through the magazine well. So we're just going to turn and basically start actually through the trigger well. We'll start there first. So we'll just push some down here into the trigger well. Now you want to push enough through that it goes to the bottom, but will still allow your bottom metal to obviously fit into the bottom of the rifle stock. So I'll go ahead now and I'll fill these dams. That's basically just a general, you know, an idea just to show you what you need to do. I'll go ahead and finish up the rest of these dams, and then I'll also turn and dam up the areas on the action and the barrel, and I'll show you those two once they're done, and then I'll record that part and show you pretty much how I've done and how I've cleaned up and everything else in there ready to go to pour the compound in and start to drop the action into the stock. So I'll do all that and I'll come back to that part, and I'll show you when we're ready to do that part of the process. Alright guys, I'll see you again shortly. Alright guys, well, now that you've made up all your dams, all your actions all dammed up, all your holes are filled, so you can't get any of that compound that's going to leach into any of the areas there underneath and cause a trap point with your barrel action. I just thread my threaded rod into the action as well. That helps to guide it down in as you go to seat the barrel action back in. Again with the stock, as you can see, we've just got our dams made up, filled up in through here, all the areas of where the bedding compound will go. And the easiest way to line them up is to get a couple of McDonald's straws and put those in there, and that'll aid for when you go to push the barrel action down in, you'll be able to line those holes straight up and you'll only get a minimal amount of bedding compound that'll actually get into those holes, which will save you from locking the screws and rigging that into the stock too. So anyway, so we'll the other thing you're going to have to do, and what I do on the side is like put a bit of a wing of tape on the side that just aids in the cleanup. You know, as it squeezes out, you can just tear it off, throw it in the bottom of the box, and you know, saves a bit of the cleanup. But now that we've done that, we're going to apply our release agent to our barrel action, and our release agent is just store-bought Kiwi boot polish. The other thing you'll have to do, you'll notice there's a little bit of blue electrical tape on the back edge of the recoil lug. You do that to allow a mil or so of relief, so it makes it easier to slide the barrel action in and out once the bedding's done. You remove that tape and it'll allow you to slide it in without it chipping any of the bedding. So hence the reason why I do that. But you just want to dab this on everywhere that it makes contact, all around the recoil lug area, the front end of the barrel, the side of the everywhere that's going to come in contact with the compound. You just basically want to dab that on, and that'll just make it so much easier to break out when you go to break the action out of the stock. To aid as well, I put some on the bolts as well to aid in that, and that also helps to undo the bolts when it comes time to take those out as well. So righto, we're pretty well done there. I can just put that down now. Now we'll take our compound, like I say, which is just that Permatex compound. We're going to use 2 of these, so just going to check there's no garbage in that. Just going to pump that into there. Take our second one, pump it into there too. And 2 of these is more than enough to get the job done. Now we'll just mix it all up. I'll just move this camera a bit closer. And the areas that you mainly want to fill first are around this recoil lug area. Let that fill up. Same as in the rear. You're going to fill it up around the recoil area, lug area in the rear. Just have to work it in there a bit, and then the rest you can then start to pour in through the sides. Just to build it up round through the sides. And the idea of those straws are now so that you get a minimal amount of that compound that's going to go down into your actual action screw area. Now that's in there ready to go, we can just you can just take this Now you just take the barrel action, sit it above those screws, above those straws, and then when you push it down in, seat it in, that should push those straws straight down through. Now that'll lock into position. Now we get that bit of squeeze out there, so we'll just turn around and put our nuts on here. So you're having that bit of a tape of on the side there just aids in the cleanup when it comes time to doing the cleanup on this. Of course, the rear screw is a bit more of a pain compared to the front. We'll start with the rear screw first. Start to lock it down, and you'll see more of that squeeze out start to happen as we start to tension this this screw down in a second. Now we can do our front one. Raise that up so that we can wind that down and in. As you can see now, more of that squeeze out coming up and over at the top there. Alright, now that's in perfectly tight. Now you can see here now already I've got squeeze out that's come raised over the top of the action there. You want to get rid of that immediately, because that is a major trap point. Same within the top here where we've got a little bit that's leached over into here. Just immediately get rid of that. We can just take the tape, pull that piece off. That just makes it a little bit easier to clean in there. Pretty much the same on the other side. Just remove your tape. Just aids in that cleanup a little bit. Then I'll just take the cotton wool buds in, and then you can just then go along and just clean up that edge where you've got that residual glue on the outside. The main thing is not let it come over center with that glue. If it comes over center, you chance to lock your action into your stock. So turn that around now and just do a bit more of a cleanup through here around the front. Around these areas. Now once that's set, and we turn around and break the barrel action out, there'll be just bits of clean up here and in the sides where you've got a little bit of of the actual compound that's flowed over into where your bolt lock goes, and also your safety switch. So that'll have to be shaped and done made back to the same as the inside of the stock. But I'll show all that once we try and drop the break the barrel action out of the stock, and we'll get to that part of it then. So we'll let that go for about 24-48 hours, and then we'll come back and we'll break it out, and we'll show you what we end up with. Right guys, so we've let that bedding compound now sit for a good day and a half to harden up. And like I said, I've pulled the threaded bolts out. As you can see by that bolt, we've still got a little bit of compound that leads down to that hole, even though we had that maca straw there. But that's just one of those things, and that's the reason why you need to get a pair of vice grips onto your bolts to get your bolts out, because they sometimes do get glued in. But with that release agent, everything pulls away and cleans up nicely. So now it's just a matter of breaking our barrel action out. We'll just remove the floor plate. You see we've still got all our dams and whatnot in there. Now to break your barrel action out, you're going to want a towel to put over the end of your barrel, just so you're not damaging it. And you're going to want a decent enough stick or a rubber mallet if you've got it, and you just want to give it a couple of good shocks. So we'll just, there we go, that's starting to work out now. We can put that down, and we can just start to work that out of that stock. Righto. That came out beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Fair bit of cleanup work involved in it, but once we've done that cleanup, guys, that will come up $1 million. That's what we're left with. We're left with a perfect inlet all the way along that area. We've got a slight little bubble just in here, but I mean, that's only the slightest of air bubble. It's not going to really harm us at all. But other than that, that is a perfect copy. You know, if you're real worried, you could probably try and put a little bit of compound in there, but there's no real need to worry about that. That's turned out great. Now it's just a matter of taking our die grinder out again, or our Dremel back out again now, and going through and knocking dams out and starting to carve that out. So I'll just pause the video for a sec, and I'll give you a quick idea on how I'm going to do that, and then once I turn and I've done that, I won't video the whole process. I'll just video part of it, sort of showing you where I've done, and then later on when I've gone through, I'll show you the main areas, like in here and in here, we've really got to clean out a lot more. So but we'll show you all that. Alright guys, we'll be back shortly. Alright guys, so we've got it there now. I'll just bring the camera over a bit closer, so I can give you guys a bit of an idea of what's going on. And then just turn the Dremel on. Now, just going to go through the bedding where you put that bedding compound in, and just basically follow back around the mag well and around those areas. You know, just clean up takes a bit of time, but with the aid of the Dremel and a very steady hand, it comes up good. You know, once you sort of go along, you can take large bits of it out at a time. You find you get big large chunks of it out, and you can just push that dam back through, and that'll give you a bit of a that'll give you a bit more of a guide to work off. But basically all you're doing is cleaning around the inside of your mag well, you know, to get that back to where it needs to be. And you know, the same in your other areas. By pulling the dam out the bottom, it'll give you a bit more of an idea too, where you need to follow and clean up. You can sort of see from the bottom there what compound's left behind that has to be ground back flat to the inside of that mag well and whatnot. But so we'll go ahead and do that now. I'll pull this dam out, and I'll start to to clean all this up, and then I'll come back at the end once I've done all that, and I'll show you what we're left with in the end, and the areas to be wary of when you're dry grinding all the rest of your compound out of there. So, all right, we'll be back shortly. Right, guys. So we've now turned around and machined out all the inside of the stock. And as you can see, we're left with a beautiful bedding job. It flows down through the sides, down around the rear tang. The areas when you're grinding away, you have to be careful is around the bolt lock release section and around where the safety is. You know, around the rear of the tang, we had a little piece break away in there. It's only a very minute amount, nothing to sneeze at. But other than that, everything's turned out exactly the way we wanted it, perfect. And it's a super snug, tight fit. There's no movement side to side or back to front in the stock. So once that's all bolted back down in there, it'll be perfect. It's all, the barrel will be fully free floated, and yeah, ready to try and take up the range and put a few rounds through it and see how it's shooting. So, but we've got the barrel action and everything out at the moment. I'm just giving a paint with some Krylon camouflage paint. I'm doing a camouflage paint job on the entire rifle, and just for purposes of rust prevention and save oiling the rifle, I always paint the barrel action and the bottom metal out of the stock, so that way you can paint the underside, so that the only areas that you really have to worry about is in around the inside of the chamber, which will be always oiled anyway. I paint it with the bolt in, so that otherwise you get that black area of the bolt and whatnot. So I like to paint it all with the bolt in, and it stops a lot of that paint from getting down inside of the chamber area and stuff like that anyway. So that's what we've done. Anyways, that pretty much wraps up how it is. It's just a matter of now putting it all back together, bolting it all down in. Now that with that bedding done, you can tighten those bolt screws in the bottom metal down to around about 30-35 inch-pound, where before you maybe done about 20-25 inch-pound. So you can get it bolted down, seated a hell of a lot tighter, and you get no movement. So that's pretty much it, guys. I'll turn the next video I'll do. If you want to see how I do a camouflage paint job, just I'll leave a link in the description to the other video on doing the camo paint job on this rifle, and we'll go from there. Alright guys, until next time, happy and safe hunting. Take it easy.